Hey guys, what's up? So, first off, I wanted to thank everyone for the well wishes since the last video. I have mostly recovered from that freaking flu that pretty much drop kicked me out of nowhere. I'm mostly recovered, other than my voice is still trying to come back, and you're going to notice in the subsequent recording that my voice is still kind of shot. It's the one thing that's still not 100%, but I'm fine. But I also am putting this in the front of the video to try to explain what's going on with this video. Because you're going to notice that for a cooking video, it's quite long. And for those of you who are like me, just want cooking videos to just get on with it and just give the recipe and show how to do it and just get it over with, that's going to be quite annoying. You can be like, what the hell, what gives? And then of course, there are those of you who have been wanting me to bring this video back, the series back, the whole Cooking on a Budget series, who are probably wondering what took me so long and why I'm bringing it back now and why it's the way it is. Well, allow me to explain. When I first started making those Cooking on a Budget videos, excuse my phone, the reason why I did it was because I was alarmed at the time how many people younger than me, and even around my age, didn't know how to cook. It blows my mind because I've always had the mindset that cooking was an essential skill. This is something that you needed to know how to do to survive, even at the most basic level, like basic things on like how to catch a ball, how to use a knife as a tool, mind you, for cooking, for like sharpening things, whatever, and cooking, and even learning how to basically mend clothes, knowing how to sew holes shut. Like, to me, those are vital skills, and cooking is one of those. And this phone shut up. So I was surprised as I was getting older how many people didn't know how to do something as simple as boil a pot of rice. And so the reason why I made those videos was to kind of give people on my channel some basic recipes to work with and some basic tips on how to cook. But I also was concerned with how expensive buying food and getting groceries has gotten. And I was, kind of concerned with the fact that it has gotten so expensive and it's getting harder and harder to be able to feed yourself and get nutrition and not kill your freaking budget. It's gotten worse these days, like with inflation the way it is and how greedy companies have gotten, not to mention how hard it is to get food that's healthy for you. It's gotten much, much worse. So that's the reason why I started the series. But the reason why I stopped making videos after a while is because I'm not exactly a professional cook. I do know how to cook, and I do enjoy cooking quite a bit, in fact. And I do have several recipes under my belt, and people have said that I'm pretty good at, cooking. But I'm not a professional chef. I don't have a bazillion recipes under my belt, and I don't exactly cook and present my food at restaurant quality. I cook good enough for me and my loved ones to enjoy. So after a while, I was like, it's probably, I don't have enough to offer. I know a few basic things. And after a while, I'm just going to run out of stuff to show, and people are going to wonder why it's not at high levels anyway. So I just stopped doing it. But lately, because of how bad things have gotten with inflation, not to mention that I have picked up a few extra recipes in my belt, and I've had so many people in the comment section, in DMs, and even in real life constantly ask me, so when are you going to do another Cooking on a Budget video? So when's the next, why haven't you done one yet? When are you going to do another one? I finally decided to bring it back, but with a few changes. First, I wanted to come up with recipes that you can play with, change around, come up with different variations. Because I know people do get tired of cooking the same things over and over again, which if you're broke, you kind of have to do for necessity. But people get tired of it. I happen to be somebody that can eat the same thing over and over and not complain, but I know other people are not like that. So this time I wanted to try to present stuff that even though the basic recipe is good enough and you can, taste it and enjoy it, you can play with them. Like this recipe that I'm giving you right now, you can play with it. You can add things to it, subtract things to it, alter it, and make it taste different, and it will be good every time once you get a hang of it. Another thing I wanted to do was also kind of give tips on just cooking in general, like, you know, the type of pots you can use, how to properly use your stuff without burning it, how to alter things on the fly, you know, what are good tools to work with, what different variations of tools you can work with depending on your budget and depending on what you have. I wanted to sprinkle those things in to try to help somebody who hasn't cooked before or knows a little bit about cooking, what they can do and how they can make things work with what they have and the budgets they have. So that is the format that I went with. The problem is that makes these videos long and kind of rambly. And again, as somebody who doesn't like it when a video just has tons of talking, you just want to get to the recipe, that does make this video among those with a whole lot of talk. And if you just want to get in on the recipe, well, yeah, the video takes so long. It's part of the reason why I'm going to have the recipe in the video description with basic instructions to follow, but I also try to put timestamps in there. That being said, those of you watching this now, if you would prefer from this point on, this series is just straight up showing the cooking and the prep and the recipe with no to minimum talking, let me know. If you do like it, that I'm able to give extra tips on variations and talking about like tools you can use and different ways to cook and things like that, and prices and budgeting and things like that, let me know, because that's what's going to dictate what the next few videos will be like. Now, to get on with this, 'cause this is already taking too long. This is a curry recipe. The reason why I picked curry is because I love curry. I love cooking it, and the people I cook for love it too. It's also a type of food that is so freaking versatile. You can do so much with it, and it's very easy to make. Contrary to what some people might believe, curry is not hard. You just need 4 to 5 spices and a few basic ingredients, and you're good to go. And you can do it in so many ways. So this is actually going to be the first of 3 different curry videos that I'm going to be presenting. But that's going to start with the same basic spices, but then go on to become something different by the end. And they all are delicious, and they're all easy to do. And they all have different variations that you can mess with to make it your own thing. I do feel a little self-conscious making it a curry though, because I do understand some of the I'm not going to say cultural hang-ups, but there is a history with curry, and it is a somewhat complicated history when you then get into the fact that other cultures have gotten into it. Because I mean, when we think curry, we usually think Indian food, Indian cuisine, or South Asian cuisine, but the thing is, curry's everywhere. There's like Japanese curries, there's like a Chinese take on curry, there's Thai curries, which is one of my favorites, there's freaking Caribbean curry, like it's everywhere. And of course, you know, the UK, they have their own take on it too, which is leading to some of the more problematic aspects of it, and you know, what is a curry and all that. I don't really want to get into that. I just wanted to be able to present a dish that I know people would enjoy, and it's something that you'll be able to make with little money. So that's why I presented this particular recipe. And as I go through the recipe, I'm also going to be talking about how to cook it, how to do things on the fly, the different tools you can use to make it, and so on and so forth, for people who have varying degrees of, you know, finance levels with their budgeting. One final thing. This particular recording did not go according to plan. Halfway through cooking it, I realized that I made a mistake. It's with the tomatoes. Generally speaking, you're supposed to throw 3 tomatoes in here for the recipe, 3 pureed tomatoes. Thing is, I was used to using Roma tomatoes, and they're fairly small sized. When pureed, they make about 1.5 cups worth of liquid to work with. However, this time when I was preparing the recipe, I bought bigger tomatoes, like, you know, the usual big fat plump ones you normally see. And that one ended up producing a little over 3 cups worth of liquid. This altered the recipe, and I realized that halfway through cooking it, and I had to adjust the recipe because of it on the fly as I was cooking it. I decided to leave that, and the reason why is because these sorts of things happen when you cook, and you have to be able to be like, oh shit, and work with what happened. Mistakes happen, things happen in cooking, and sometimes, hell, you might not even be able to get the ingredients you wanted to get. You may be like, okay, I need to get this, and you go to the store and it's not there, but you need to cook now, right? So you just grab what you can and you work with it. Or you might have made a mistake like I did. 3 tomatoes is 3 tomatoes. And then you end up with extra stuff. What do you do? In this particular case, if you guys decide to follow the recipe exactly the way I did it in the video, my tip, double up on the spices. That's what I had to do. I did it off camera because I had to edit this. Actually, it really wasn't off camera. It's just I had to edit this video to shrink it down to the size that I have now because it's already over an hour. But that was the solution because it's double the liquid. It's supposed to be about 1.5 cups worth of tomato puree. I ended up with 3, so double up on the spice level, you'll be good to go. But I just wanted to show you guys what happened as I was going through things. Another thing, try to have your spices ready to throw in before you start throwing in the first onion thing. Because I was cooking pretty much on the fly when I did the recording. I just started chopping things up, throwing things in there. And it's a little tedious that way. It's a lot better to chop up your onions, chop up your garlic, and have your spices poured out in advance. So that once you heat up the pan and you throw the onions in and the other things in, just, you could just boom, 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 boom. And you don't got to worry about things burning or, oh my God, I gotta grab this. You won't feel hurried. You won't feel rushed. So that's about it. Anything else I need to explain is in the subsequent video. I hope you guys are able to get something out of this. I am sorry for the length of it. I will try my best to make the next one shorter in length. But you guys tell me what you think. Hey guys, so now that I've gone through the basics of what curry is and why we're going to be started with a curry recipe for this video, let me get into the basic ingredients that you're going to need to make curry. Don't be intimidated by all of this. You don't need all of this. I'm just going to be showing the basic stuff, and then I'm going to be showing the variations, all right? So, when you're making curry, and I'm going to generally say Indian style curry, and again, we already talked about how that in itself is a huge category. When you're making this type of curry, you really only need 4 spices. 4 to 5. The first thing you're going to start with is good old turmeric. You can get this pretty cheap. In fact, as you can see, I got a store brand version. You don't have to get anything fancy. Just ground turmeric will do. If you're able to afford it, you can go and get the actual thing, provided that you're going to be willing to grind it down with something like this, which is a nice thing to have in the kitchen. And you can actually get this at a pretty cheap price, but I can understand if your budget doesn't allow it. That being said, fresh turmeric is going to taste really good in a curry, and I am going to be using it this time because I actually was able to find this really cheap. But that being said, I can understand that that's outside people's budget. The powdered variety is perfectly fine. I use this all the time. Nothing wrong with it. Second thing you're going to need, the second thing is cumin. Again, I got a McCormick version, the big one, but it doesn't really matter. If you can find this cheap, get it cheap. You don't have to worry about breaking your budget for this. Ground cumin is fine. Third thing you're going to need, this is, there it is, the ground coriander. This, for some strange reason, is a little tricky for me to find. Some stores, sometimes they have it, other times they don't. I don't know why, but generally speaking, if you have a really good supermarket to go to, you'll be able to find this, and you're going to need that in there. So find the cheapest version you can find. Again, budget. Well, when I say the cheapest you can find, I don't necessarily mean the worst quality you can find. I'm just saying something that you can afford to get, that isn't going to break your wallet. Find it, get it. Last thing is now, here's where it gets tricky. We got paprika and we got chili powder. Depending on your palate, depending on how much heat you can handle, you can substitute one for the other. So you can get away with just using paprika if you don't want it too hot, and then that will be that. Or if you want just the kick, you can add the chili powder, or you can go with some kind of hot pepper, like cayenne pepper or something like that. Me, however, I suggest mixing both of these. It's actually, if you just use these 5 basic spices, you got good curry right here. Just this. You don't need anything else. Forget everything else you're seeing here. Just this, and you're good to go. And even though this is a bit of a hot variety, it's not that hot. Okay, I say this as somebody who eats a lot of hot food, but it's not that hot. I've tasted much hotter. And I find that when you mix these two together, it really adds to the flavor. If you want to play around with this, you can also get I forgot the name of it. I'll have it on the screen. But there's a certain Indian variety, I think it's cashmere, I'm probably messing it up. But there's a particular type of paprika that they have which also goes well with this. I was going to try to cook with that, but I ran out. There's also this stuff that I picked up, smoked paprika, which is also really tasty. This one may cost a bit though. I was actually able to get this on sale, which is why I picked it up. And I'm going to be cooking with this tonight. But again, regular paprika is fine. You don't really have to go all, crazy with it. These 5 ingredients are all you need. Now, once you get good with this, or if you want to change the flavor profiles a bit, you can kick it up a notch with a few different things. You will notice that I got a couple of other spices here. One is cayenne pepper. You can either use this to substitute the chili powder with if you want a little bit more of a kick, or you can throw that in on top of it all. That is going to add to the heat. If you can't handle the heat, don't use this. Something else you can throw in for more heat, good old ground fresh chili paste. I swear by this stuff. Again, I like hot food, and I'm going to be throwing this in. You can also throw in sriracha if you want. You can actually use fresh chili peppers, which actually was the original recipe that I picked up. It said to go for hot chili peppers. But I'm a little bit of a lazy bastard, which is why I use this as a substitute instead. So you can go with this, you can go with sriracha, you can go with the cayenne pepper, you can go with any other thing if you want to kick it up a notch. But again, this is optional. The main spices you need are these 5 right here. And then if you want to add a little bit, this is, again, once you get good at this, you can twist this up and make it your own thing. You can add cinnamon, you can add clove, you can add allspice, you can add nutmeg, and just play around with it and see how you want the flavor to be and cook with that. But work with these first, okay? Next thing that we're gonna need for all this, we're gonna need tomatoes. We're gonna need 3 medium-sized tomatoes for this, or about 350 grams worth. If you can't get tomatoes at a good price, nothing wrong with the canned stuff. I picked this up for 99 cents. Pureed tomatoes, good enough. I see like when you're pureeing a tomato, it's roughly around, I'd say half a cup to about 1/3 of a cup per tomato, something like that. So 3 tomatoes would be about, I'd say about 1.5 cups at the most worth of tomato puree that you're gonna dump in there. But again, you can just use this. I picked this up for 99 cents. Or if you want, if you can't find it, or if this is cheaper, pick up diced tomatoes. Throw it in your blender if you have one. That works too. But yeah, just this is the main, the other main thing that we're going to be putting in to give it that rich flavor that these curries are known for. All right. We're also going to need garlic. I got a few cloves here that we're going to be chopping up and grinding up. I'm going to be turning this into a paste along with fresh ginger. If you do not have fresh versions of this, and again, I can understand if you're tight on a budget, or if you can't find it, or if you feel like you don't have enough skill to chop it really fine, or mince it fine, or if you don't have one of these to grind it down, which is what I'm going to use, get the powdered stuff. Will it be as good? Yeah, it's not going to be as good, but it's not going to be horrible. It still works. Instead of using a tablespoon's worth of this, you're going to be using a tablespoon worth of powdered garlic. Powdered ginger. It will work. So don't feel bad about that. Same thing with this. Again, this is turmeric. You can use the powdered variety, and most of the time when I was cooking this, I used the powdered one, but we'll be using a tablespoon worth of this today. You're going to need a medium-sized onion. I don't care what onion you use. Originally, this went for, it said that go for red onions. If you can't find the red onions, find like sweet onions, whatever. This one happens to be a sweet onion. But if you don't have it, if you got yellow onions, that's fine. Medium-sized yellow onion, good enough. White onion, good enough. We just need onions. Throw that in there. If you happen to have a really large one, use half. But you just need a medium-sized onion. So, finally, we're going to need, for this particular recipe, chickpeas. I got 2 cans worth right here that we're going to be working with, okay? You can get a bag of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, if you want to call it that, and boil those. That's fine. In fact, it will taste a little bit better if you actually boil it and then, you know, throw it in the recipe. But again, we're on a budget, aren't we? And sometimes we don't have the time to do all of this. Pick up 2 cans. None wrong with that. 1 can's going to be ground up. The other can we're going to be using whole. 15 ounces each. 15 or 16 ounce cans. Good enough. It will work. And I know I said finally, but I forgot one other ingredient. We are going to need yogurt. That nice creamy texture that you tend to see in these type of curries. This is one of the ways you can do it. There is another way, but that's for the other variation I'm going to do in the next video. So we're going to need yogurt for all this. Anyway, I've yapped long enough. Let's cook. But let's prepare first before we even cook. We need to start chopping up these ingredients and then throwing them in here. You're going to need yourself a decent pan, saucepan, frying pan. You have a wok, that works too. But basically you want a good pan. By the way, as far as pans go, I highly suggest, if you can get the money for it, shop around for it, get yourself a good stainless steel pan. I know that there's these non-stick varieties out there, but I'm sure if you paid attention to the news, you know about the problems with non-stick pans. The freaking forever chemicals that it's putting on water supply and food supply. And not only that, sooner or later the coating gets scraped if you're using metal on them, which you really shouldn't be using metal implements on a non-stick pan. But if those get scraped up, now you're ingesting that stuff, and that's not good for you. Get a stainless steel pan, a good one with a nice thick bottom. I know good cookware can be really expensive. I found this at a used shop. Okay? Shop around. Go to a Goodwill. Go to, I know people don't like the Salvation Army. I'm kind of one of them. But just find a place. St. Vincent's. Find some place where you can find secondhand stuff that's in good condition. Go on Craigslist if you have to. You can find good cookware at a decent price. Now, for some of you guys who are going, well, I don't know how to cook, or I'm just starting to get into cooking and I don't want the food to burn. When you work with a stainless steel, here's an extra tip. When you're working with stainless steel pans, what you need to do is find that sweet spot where nothing is going to burn. There is a sweet spot. There is a way to cook in here where you don't really need the oil to keep it non-stick. I'm going to be using oil, but that's more for flavor. What you do is very simple. You're going to be turning up the heat. I already know exactly where mine is. My sweet spot's like right about there, okay? But when it comes, you're going to have to fine-tune it yourself when it's your stove. Some of you guys are working with gas stoves. I envy you. Some of you guys might be working with, an electric stove that has a different tuning to it. Some of you guys are working with the electric stoves with the glass top rather than the coils. So you guys are going to have to try to find your sweet spot. The sweet spot is this. Once this thing gets hot enough where it's not going to get any hotter, you're going to grab some water, you're going to flick it on. If the water instantly evaporates or you see a puddle of it instantly fizzing up, it's too hot. The food's going to burn and stick. If you throw the water in there and it's kind of like the way you see the water here, where it's not really doing anything or it's very slowly evaporating, it's too cool. You got to jack it up. What you want, and maybe I'll get a chance to show it to you a little bit when it gets a bit hotter. What you want is when you flick the water on, like you just splash it in, and they turn into balls and they're bouncing or better yet, rolling around. If you see the balls rolling around, the balls of water turns into little beads of water rolling around, that's the sweet spot. That's where the food is not going to burn. It's not going to stick. As long as you're able to figure out where that is, it's going to take a little bit of fine-tuning on your own stove. Find out where that sweet spot is and use that as the main way you're going to be cooking your food. You won't burn anything. Well, obviously you want to stay here and watch it. If you walk away and come back, it might burn. But yeah, that's generally the sweet spot that you want. So normally when I'm heating this up, what I'm really supposed to be doing is chopping up the onions and stuff. So that's where we can get into our knives. I'm showing 2 different types of knives here. One of them a really good friend of mine gave me. It's the one that she used to use. It's got a really good edge, good steel, it's really good company. I was lucky enough to get my hands on this one because I know these tend to go for a pretty high price. The other one I bought many, many, many years ago, and it's still with me. Some of you guys might be laughing because, yeah, I know, Cutco. I did kind of fall for the gimmicks back then. But you know what? This is still a pretty good knife. I bought this back in 2006. It's still going. Still has a good edge. I still, you know, hone it with a sharpening stone, and it's gone through all its paces, and it still works pretty well. The reason why I'm showing these different knives is because sooner or later when you're cooking, you're going to want a good knife. You don't need to spend all that much on one, though. Again, shop around. Though, to be honest, if you look on places like Amazon or whatever, you could probably pick up a decent knife for around $35, maybe $40. I know that's a little bit much for some people. I've been there, and it's not like I'm rolling in dough now, but you don't need to get like $100 knives or anything like that, especially when you're starting out. If you're just starting to cook, or you're like an amateur cook, you're just trying to give yourself sustenance, there's no reason to pick up like $100 knives. You're not running a restaurant, so what do you need it for? Anyway, I am going to use this one for now, because that's the one that she gave me. As you can see, good sharp knife, it just goes right through. Cutting up an onion is not that big of a deal. You're going to be taking off the top bit, you're going to be taking off the root part, then we're going to be getting rid of all the brown stuff. You can slice right into that to take it off. You can be old-fashioned like me and just simply peel it off. You just know where to go with it. But you want all this brown stuff off of there, okay? You don't want to eat that. It's not like it's poisonous, but it's not exactly pleasant either because it's all dried up and it's kind of like eating paper. Like, you don't really want that. So we're going to get rid of all this crap. Put it in the trash there. And yes, I did wash my hands before we started, so... Actually, I'm going to take off that. Some people are okay with this layer. My dad, though, did not like that layer because it was just beginning to dry, so he always told me to cut it off. And old habits die hard, so yeah, I'm going to take that part off too. Basically, as long as it's got juice, as long as it's wet, it's fine, but I want to get to the brightest part of the onion, the brightest layer, so I know for a fact that nothing in there is going to be unedible. And again, this is a good size onion, just a decent medium size. All right? So, basic knife technique. Usually you hold it here, and don't be like this, please. But your fingers should be like this. Don't cut like that unless you like the sight of your own blood. Okay, so we're going to be mincing this a bit. That's all. You can, if you got a good knife, you can just push. It goes right through. And when I mean push, I don't mean pushing straight down. You're slicing into it. Just slice. That's it. Just slice. Nothing major. Just slice. That's all. Nothing major. And then we're going to be mincing the crap out of this, all right? Now, here's where professional cooks are going to be looking at me like, oh my God, this technique is horrible. Yes, I know, I'm not as good as you guys. But I at least understand to keep my nails forward and push toward the blade. You want to cut this as small as you can. If you can't get it too small, this is fine. But I like, I'm kind of, you know, pedantic. I tend to like mincing the crap out of my onions when I'm cooking, especially when it comes to curry. The smaller it is, the more the flavor, you know, gets through. So you're going to want to bunch this up, and you're just going to just mince. That's all. Just get in there and mince it up real fine. Real fine. There we go. Again, I know it's a bit not as uniform. I'm not a professional cook. I just cook for my loved ones, okay? So yes, everything is going to be a little irregular. And so that was the other reason why I wanted to show these two knives. My older knife does not have that sort of hand guard over here, whereas this one does. And this does kind of get in the way a little bit with the way I'm used to cutting with my technique. If you're somebody who cuts that way, you might not like this knife. And you're going to find yourself having to cut more with this side than the bottom. I'm so used to using this part, so it's taken me a bit to get used to the way this knife works. But I've gotten used to it eventually. So because I just found this knife too good to ignore. So, but that is something to keep in mind. So, now, if you're somebody who does not have a lot of time to cook, what I'm doing now is probably what you should be doing during your downtime. Like, the sauce that I'm about to make, you can make it and then throw it in a jar And then when it's time for you to actually cook your food, you came back home from work or something, or came back from class or whatever, you know, you can just take out that jar of sauce that you already prepared, throw it in your freaking pot, and cook from there. So you don't have to spend so much time doing all this preparation. Another thing you can do to cheat a little bit is get yourself, I mean, granted, it's going to cost you more money in the long run, but it's still something that I could see some people doing. You can buy frozen minced onions. You can just go out, buy a bag of minced onions, and then just toss the suckers in there. On the bottom of the video, I'm going to have the exact measurements you're going to need, so you can just use that, throw that in there, and you're good to go. So, let's test out the pot so you can see what I'm talking about, what I was saying before. See that? See the little balls rolling around? That's what we want. This pot's ready. I'm going to turn up a little bit because I'm seeing it. There we go. Yeah, that's good. So, you're going to need oil. This is the controversial part of the cooking on the budget thing. Yes, I know I'm working with avocado oil. Yes, I know how expensive this crap is. I wish it weren't that expensive. But I prefer using this than the freaking canola oil and the other hydrogenated oils that they have us use. I don't use vegetable oil. I don't use canola oil. I damn sure don't use no peanut oil. I'm trying to use healthy oils here. And there is a place that I've been picking this up for a fraction of the price that this stuff normally goes for. Like this bottle here usually goes for close to $20 freaking. I'm able to pick it up for around 11. It's still a lot, but I think it's worth it overall. If you can't find this, there are other oils you can find that are healthier. Olive oil, not the extra virgin. That stuff is not for cooking. But if you can get your hands on olive oil, that's fine. It might add a little bit to the flavor, but generally a good neutral oil is fine. Coconut oil, it's a little bit controversial in certain areas, but you can use that too. It tends to be a little bit cheaper than that, but that's what I like to use. I use about tablespoons worth, a little bit less. I don't like using that much oil. Other recipes are going to say to use a lot of oil. Use 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. I use just enough to coat the pot, if I'm going to be honest with you. And depending on, like I tend to eyeball it sometimes when I see it, like, is it too wet, is it too dry? But 1 tablespoon should be enough. And then fine tune it from there. So we're going to grab our onions. See, that sounds nice and good. Make sure this fat piece is too big. Too big for my taste. Chop it out. Alright, so get it in there. Okay, get it in there. There we go. Last bit onion. I'm going to want to mix that up. And again, I'm using soft materials for my pan. I'm not using metal on metal. This is a silicone utensil. You can also use wooden ones. I do not recommend using metal on metal. It just makes sense to me. My dad was also drilling that in my head when he first taught me how to cook. So, we want this to get translucent. I do not want this to burn. I just want this to be translucent. It's already kind of getting there. So, while this is happening, we're going to prepare our paste. Huh? What? Garlic, ginger. I need to make about a tablespoon's worth of garlic and a tablespoon's worth of ginger. Now, I'm going to be doing this. And by the way, that's one good technique you can use to instantly peel garlic. Just hit the bastard. Just do that. See? It comes off. You don't have to spend forever trying to rip the thing off. So, now I'm gonna smash it. See? It just comes right off. Well, my thumb, now I'm making it look like it's hard, but no, I just couldn't grip it. You see, it comes right off. That's about, I'd say that's about a tablespoon or 15 milliliters worth, right? You can check it out for yourself. I got one right here. I'd say that's about it, right? Eyeball it. It's good. Take off that little gnarly bit there. Over there. Take off that gnarly bit right there. And then take off that gnarly bit right there. Good. Get that crap out of here. Put it in the garbage where it belongs. Now, I'm gonna... Now, if you do not have this, but you have a food processor, throw it in the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, try to mince this as fine as possible. Like, same way I did the onions, you're gonna want to do that. But I have a pestle and mortar, so I'm just gonna throw that in there. I'm chopping it up a little bit to make it a little bit easier on myself. I'm throwing that in there. Do that again, make it a little bit easier on myself. Put that in there. And then last, throw that in there. Okay? Now we have our ginger. I need about, again, 15 milliliters worth. I'm going to put that over to the side. Yeah, eyeball it. Yeah, it's a little bit more. It works. We don't want to peel this crap. So we're going to peel that crap off. I'm just going down here. It helps to have your garbage nearby. You know, so it's a lot of ginger. It's going to be nice and crisp and fresh. Again, if you don't have fresh ginger, ginger powder works. If you don't have, well, actually, yeah, just get some ginger. Get some ginger powder if you don't got ginger powder. But you're going to want that in there. It should be enough. Actually, that might have been a little too much, but it's not going to be too bad. Not going to be too bad. And then just grind it. If you do decide to get yourself one of these, make sure that this is, you want this part and the inside to be rough. If it's smooth, it's not exactly going to make it easy for you to do your job. But generally speaking, you want to grind this into a paste. All right? Just grind it up. Take all your aggression out of it. You had a rough day at work, you're coming home, and you just beat the crap out of it. Pretend it's your boss or something. But just get in there and grind it up good. Again, if you don't have one of these, mince the crap out of it. And you can also use one of these. Just be very careful that you're not slicing or shredding your fingers thin when you're using these, but you can use this too. And hell, I picked this up for $1. This used to be the main thing I used before I switched over to this. All right? The main thing is you want to get this as much as a paste as possible. If you can't get it in a paste, mince the crap out of it. But you want this to be ground down to as fine and as small as possible. Because this garlic and ginger combination is really going to add to the flavor. So don't be afraid to just grind that up. This is actually reminding me of like when my parents used to cook. They had a wooden version of this that they were doing all the time. My dad was throwing garlic and onions and throwing pepper and just grind the crap out of it for a while. Yeah, I got fancy and went with a stone one, but it's the same principle. If you're living by yourself and you don't want to spend too much money, you can get like a smaller version of this. It's like worth about a cup's worth of space. I got me 2 cups worth because I know the amount of cooking and grinding I'm going to be doing. But this size is fine, okay? Like this is about 2.5 cups worth, something like that. Quickly check on my onions to make sure it's not burning. It's brown a little bit, but it's not too bad. If you see this, don't freak out. As long as it doesn't burn, it did get a bit brown, but it didn't burn too much. But this is the time when I'm supposed to be throwing in my paste. So we're going to do that. Again, this is not a cooking show, so things are going to be a little imperfect. But the point is, just cooking so that it's tasty. This is not restaurant level, though I have been told my food is pretty good anyway. So, I'm going to throw that in. Just scoop that bastard in there. Fry that up. Get that all in there. And you should be smelling it all now. The onions, the garlic, the ginger, all that flavor should be coming out. All that flavor should be coming out. All right. Here's where you need to move fast. Technically speaking, I should have already had this prepared. Don't do this exactly the way I'm doing it. You might want to have your, spices already laid out before you start doing what I'm doing. You need to remember the following ratios, all right? You're going to need, actually, I was going to use the fresh, but I don't want this to burn, so we're going to be using the powder after all, unless my camera lady wants me to use the fresh. I'm going to leave it up to her. Do you want me to use the fresh turmeric, or do you want me to use the powder? Fresh. Okay. So what I'm going to do to not make it burn, I'm going to take it a little bit off the heat, just for a little bit, because I need to make sure to measure out 1 teaspoon's worth of this, or 5 milliliters. Right around. Say about that much. I'm going to skin this one. So, quickly chop that up. Fresh turmeric. Again, if you don't have fresh turmeric, or if you can't afford it, that is fine. Powdered works just fine. I've had a lot of people very happy with what I came up with the powdered variety. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is the first time that I've done this with the fresh one, so I can't wait to see how this comes out. All right, just got my hair out of the way. I got that out. Let's grind this. Got a bit of ginger in there, that's fine. We'll make this a little extra gingery. Ginger and turmeric, by the way, mixed together is pretty good stuff. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of golden milk. This is sort of how to prepare it. If you've got a certain amount of turmeric, I forgot the exact ratios. In fact, if you want, I might put it in the bottom as a bonus. But fresh ginger, fresh turmeric, heat it up in a pan, then put it in a jar along with a couple other ingredients. It'll last for about a week, and then you can just put that in warm milk and drink that in the evening. Good for your health. I'm serious. That smells really good. It smells really, really good. Okay, so let's see. Were my measurements correct, or do I need more turmeric? Let's find out. This is metal, but it's on stone. Yeah. That looks like a teaspoon to me. That looks like 5 milliliters to me. And it's fresh. So, into here we go. So, we needed 5 milliliters or a teaspoon of that. Now, what we are going to need is, where is my roof? Again, I don't want this to burn. This is starting to turn brown here, and we're trying to preserve that. I might put a little bit more oil in there. So, next one, and again, in no particular order, we need a tablespoon or 15 milliliters of cumin. Again, a little bit more. That's too much. There we go. Boom, that works. Then we're going to need the paprika. Actually, let's do the smoked paprika. Again, I just got this. That's going to be good. It's going to be good. Again, tablespoons worth. Yeah, that works. So we put the cumin, we put that. We need the coriander. Oops. Just got my hands on this, so excuse me while I take the lid off. Again, we want tablespoons worth. Again, just, you can be exact. You don't have to be too exact, but you don't want to put too much. Never put too much of a spice. Never put too much of a spice. That's good. And then last but not least, we'll put the chili powder in. There you go. Again, it's a tablespoon's worth of the other spices and a teaspoon's worth of the turmeric. All right? That's enough. That works. Okay? And then we're just going to throw this sucker right in there. So we got that ginger, got those onions, and all those, and then the turmeric, all those fresh spices. Now this is looking a little dry, so I'm going to put a teensy bit more oil, not too much. I'm not trying to clog arteries here. I'm just trying to carry the flavor. Okay? So I'm just going to put a teensy bit more oil, just a little bit more. Hi-ya. Mix it up. Basically, you're turning this into a paste. Okay? That's pretty much what you're doing. You're turning this into a paste. And you should be smelling the combination of all those spices if you're cooking this right now. And don't worry about seeing this This may be a bit caked on, but once I add the liquid ingredients, it's all going to smooth out. It's all going to come out. Just don't leave it on the fire for too long. Okay? You don't want to leave it on the fire for too long. So I'm mixing it up. And now we got to quickly go with the next ingredients. What are those next ingredients? The tomatoes. I need 3 of them, or around a cup and a half's worth of tomato puree. So that's what we want to do. Puree this. Let's count exactly how much this ended up being. That's half a cup. 1 cup.
Oh, it's sizzling.
Half a cup. 2 cups.
Oh, it stopped.
Half a cup. Uh-oh. 3 cups. Shite. 3 1/4 cups.
No, it's more like a third because the third one was a bit more than a cup, or a bit more than half a cup. So it's more like 3 1/3.
Okay. Well, now we know. For the longest time, I was only using, like, if I didn't have 3 tomatoes, but then again, I was using Roma tomatoes. That's why. So that's going to make this really interesting. And some of you guys might be going, oh my God, you should be editing all this stuff out. Like you said it was this much of it. No, that's the fun of cooking. It's not always going to be exactly the same every time until you've perfectly planned it all out. Like if you've gotten your recipe down to a science and you don't feel like experimenting with it, you don't feel like, trying to find new things with it or whatever, if you're not going to be changing your ingredients at all, then yeah, it's going to be perfectly, exactly the same.
But that's boring.
Exactly. If, however, you're willing to keep playing with it, messing with it, you're going to end up in situations like I just found out where it's like, that's a lot more. But I will say this. When I did use 1.5 cups, it still ended up good. It just was a more compact, richer taste because there wasn't as much. But with this much tomato, I think it'll still taste good. That's part of the reason why I got him here right now. Because it helps to have somebody to taste the food. If you don't have anyone else, obviously it needs to be you. Taste your food. I don't know how many times people, they start cooking, they just throw everything in there, they think it's fine, they sit down, I don't know what happened. Did you taste your food while you were cooking? Taste your food.
Except this time I'm the guinea pig.
Well, I'm going to be tasting it too. So just keep mixing it.
Well, then I'm the first guinea pig.
And you see how nice and rich this looks already? We're not even fully... This, by the way, is the main sauce. This is the main sauce right here. All right, so I am now going to be adding in the final little bits of the flavorful parts of this, and we're going to be fine-tuning it from here. So we're going to want to add a little bit of salt and pepper for taste. And this is also where I'm going to be adding in my little bits to this. So, actually, before I even add the salt, you do not have to do this. This is what I do. Again, you do not have to do this. But if you are so inclined, this is where this particular recipe is truly my curry blend. The thing about curries is that everyone who really gets into curry or who cooks it traditionally, they have their own twist on it, their own particular flavor. That's part of the reason why it's sometimes not a very good idea to always go to, I'm just going to buy curry powder and just use that. Because it's some company's blend, and it's probably not going to be nearly as good as what you could come up with. So when I make curry, besides those basic ingredients I just told you guys about, I add about 1/8 teaspoons worth of cinnamon. Just a little bit.
Cinnamon?
Just a little bit of cinnamon. Again, you're not trying to make this sweet. You're just trying to add that little hint of sweetness to it. That's why I add 1/8.
And cinnamon itself isn't really that sweet.
Yeah. And then the next thing I add is, again, about 1/8 teaspoons worth. 1/4, 1/8. You want a small amount. You do not want to overdo it with this.
What is that?
Clove powder.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit. If you decide to do this, don't over season the food. Just enough. That mix of the cinnamon and the clove mixed with this, Oh, it's really freaking good. I have not had anybody complain about this extra bit that I throw in there.
What happens when you add too much clove?
It's just not edible. It's too strong. It's too overpowering. It tastes disgusting. You want just enough so that it adds that little twist of flavor to the food. Just enough. So, mixing that in there. And then we're going to be adding in a little bit. This is to taste, so don't ask me for the exact amount of salt I'm putting in. This is to taste how you like it. Some of you guys might want to put a bucket of salt in there. I don't recommend it. But some of you guys might want to add a lot. Some of you guys don't want to add any. Some of you guys want to add a small amount. It's to taste. Okay? So, oh, and by the way, if you guys have been noticing, remember all that stuff on the bottom that some of you probably, it's burning. Look. See? I'm going to try my best to show it, and I'm spinning it around. You don't see any of it down there, do you? Because it didn't burn. I told you. You control the heat. You find out where the sweet spot is. It will all come together. As long as you don't let it sit on the fire too long, and then it does burn. Like if that powder stuff you saw on the bottom turned black, yeah, you let it burn. But as long as you move quick enough, you just keep working with it, you don't leave it, it'll be good. So now we're going to test our food. I'm going to taste it. Oh, that is very tomatoey. Very tomatoey. Try that again.
Hey, when is my turn?
It's about to be your turn now, but I'm thinking it needs a little something more. And?
Ow, 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 ow.
He asked for it.
Are you ready?
Add a bit of pepper to that. Black pepper, again, to taste.
That caught me off guard just how tomato that was. Because I tasted like pure tomato for a second there.
Again, you do not have to do this, but I will. I am going to be adding a tablespoon of the good spice. Okay?
Is that good spice?
The good spice. This is straight up fresh chili paste. This is not for the meek. If you can handle this heat, I highly recommend this. Or, again, you can add straight up sriracha sauce. That works too.
Do I hear weak sauce?
But I like my chilies. Sorry. I like my curry hot. So we're going to throw that in there.
I get.
Add that. Again, you ready?
I trusted you.
So, we are now done with the fine-tuning of the sauce. My son likes it. I like it. This is basically hot the way I like it, flavorful the way I like it. But there is something that I should mention about what I just did. One, I know there's some of you guys who do not eat meat or probably do not eat beef. You do not have to add this meat part in. In fact, this original recipe was meatless. And in fact, I'm going to be adding in the ingredients that would substitute for the meat, though I'm going to be adding in it to mix in with this to make it nice and rich and flavorful and all that good stuff. Second, I added in this meat after the sauce was prepared, when I got it tasting the way I wanted it. I don't recommend you do it that way, but I know that is the way some people are going to do it for one reason. The stage just before I added the meat is where if you were going to save the sauce, that's where you would stop. After you've got it to taste the way you want, after you got the flavor to go the way you want to go about it, turn off the fire, get a jar, shove it in there, throw it in the fridge. I don't care what jar. Go to a dollar store or something, buy those little jars you can get for $1 or $2. Or, hey, how many sauces do you buy at the store? When you finish using that sauce, clean the jar, put it inside, recycle, use that stuff. I do that all the time. Just put that in there, wait for the day that you are going to be cooking. You just got home from work, you're in a rush, grab the jar, throw it in there, heat it up, throw in your meat. Or better yet, which is what I recommend, throw in your oil, saute your meat a little bit, then throw the sauce over it, and then cook it, which is what I should have done. This is still going to be good because I'm going to have this sauce, like, it's going to be bubbling in here for about 15 minutes, really get that flavor in there. But what really helps to get the meat in there is if you put the meat in before you add the tomato. So for those of you who want to add meat to this, the stage after you throw the spices in, just before you throw in the tomato sauce, well, the pureed tomatoes, put in your meat, mix it all around, get that spice clinging to the meat and the oil in there, and fry that up, then put in the puree, then cook it like this. It's going to be better than this way. But this way is not bad. I know some people who prefer doing it this way. In fact, I've seen people traditionally making it. They do it the way I just did it. I prefer putting in the meat beforehand, but that's just me. So we're going to let this simmer. Keep that heat exactly where it is. We're going to keep this uncovered because we want the sauce to be thick. We're going to be rendering this down. The water is it's thick, but it's still kind of on the, the viscosity is on the kind of watery side. We want this to really thicken up. That's traditional, Indian curries. They thicken up. So that's why I'm not covering this. I'm keeping it under this heat to, let it render down. But now that we got the meat in there, we're going to be adding in the final bits of ingredients. You might be wondering, what the hell are the chickpeas for? And I thought you had yogurt. This is where we're going to be adding it in. So, again, you want to do it the old-fashioned way? Grab a bag of dried chickpeas, boil that stuff, drain it, and now you're going to be throwing it in the blender first, and then you're going to be throwing it in. But for those of you who don't have time and or don't want to spend the money on a bag, can. I got this for $1. We're cooking on a budget, remember? So this is what we're going to be doing. Grab your first can. You might notice we have 2. You'll see why in a bit. We're going to open up our first can. Get yourself a good can opener, by the way. Whether it's an electric one or a handheld one or whatever, just get yourself a good one. Don't wait. This is something that you are going to have to spend a little bit extra money on because crappy can openers are frustrating, and then you got to go out and buy another one. Just buy one good one, and you don't got to worry about it afterwards. So we don't want the liquid. Drain it. Get all the liquid out of there. Okay. And now our beans, we're going to be putting them in the blender. On top of that...
Oh, but there's still stuff in the blender.
Yeah, little bits of the tomato. Nothing wrong with that. We're eating tomato. So, on top of that, we are going to be adding, after I rinse this, we're going to need cold water, 1/4 of a cup or 120 milliliters of water. Get that in there. I really should just be bringing my freaking blender over to the sink. And then we are going to need, grab a spoon. We are going to need 1/4 of a cup, or again 120 milliliters of yogurt. I like using Greek yogurt. If you want to use regular yogurt, that is fine, but I happen to like using the Greek yogurt. I just like the thicker consistency of it. And plain yogurt. I shouldn't have to say that because you can see it's plain. But don't grab strawberry yogurt, throw it in there, and then complain about how bad the recipe is. Get plain yogurt. It's fine. And we're going to dump that in. Okay. Throw that in our little whirly-majig thing here. So throw this into the sink for a second.
Whirly-majig? I mean, I guess you're...
Zoe, sir.
I guess you're not wrong.
And we're gonna... Man, I got too much stuff in the way here. So, hold on to that.
I hate blenders.
I like to make it really damn sure. Like I just want this as smooth as possible. So yeah, I might let it go for a little bit longer than most people. We're just gonna toss that in there.
A necessary evil.
And it's gonna thicken everything up. There we go. Chickpeas, yogurt, and that little bit of water. And we're gonna just mix that in there. It's going to brighten up the color, as well as Just make it all nice and creamy. Another really good thing about this is that adding in those chickpeas adds, it's going to be a health thing, because not only are you getting the simple protein of chickpeas, but you're also adding fiber, which we need. I'm pretty sure you need more fiber. You need more fiber. This is one way to get it in there. This is one way to get it into your diet. Just blend that sucker, throw it in the sauce. As you're eating the sauce, you're getting your fiber, you're getting your proteins. And again, if you want this meatless, you're getting the protein from the chickpeas as well as some from the yogurt. Though those of you who are completely vegan and you don't want to eat yogurt, well, that's going to be a little bit difficult. I recommend coconut milk then. You can just simply blend in 1/4 cup of coconut milk, and that will help with. It's also going to add a unique twist to the flavor as well, which is kind of a bit of foreshadowing to the next version of this that I'm going to be showing you with the other video.
Oh, it looks oranger.
Yep.
Like less red.
Yeah. So now, again, I'm going to give it a taste. See if it's good. Yeah.
Let me blow on it this time.
Let you taste it.
I wasn't. Every time. This tastes like it has cheese in it.
There's no cheese, just yogurt.
Yeah, it tastes like the No, not the cheese. It tastes almost like sour.
You need to render down.
It tastes almost like sour cream because of the yogurt.
So I've been letting this simmer for a bit and watching it thicken up and watching the meat get all nice and cooked. In fact, the meat's already looking cooked, but we're going to want this to simmer longer because we want this meat. This is beef, okay, that I'm working with. And beef can be really tough, so you want to keep cooking it, like really make it break down. And no, I'm not going to be doing the trick that you can do with beef where you have it sitting with water and baking soda for a while. No, because that actually gets rid of the flavor. Which, I mean, then you can throw it in here and it'll absorb all that nice curry flavor. But that's not really what I want to do here. We're just going to let the meat break down in the sauce and the heat. And besides, the acids of the tomatoes is going to help with that anyway. So, we're almost done with this. And I've had to fine-tune this. Again, there's a reason why it's important to taste your food. Add a little bit more garlic, a little bit more of the other ingredients. Added more heat because a certain person kept saying weak sauce. So we made it not weak.
Really now?
Really now.
Let me blow on it.
I will say this. It isn't strong, but it's not weak anymore. Like he's able to lift maybe, like a 15-pound dumbbell or something. So. Okay.
Weak sauce.
You can't satisfy everybody. So, we now need to add the final ingredient to this. Okay? Remember, we have 2 cans of chickpeas. It's time to crack open the second one. Again, you could, before all this, and if you have the time, just grab a dry bag, boil it, and basically you're going to want around 30 to 32 ounces of, or I'm trying to do it in my head, about 850 grams of chickpeas. Half of that is going to be the stuff that you blend with the yogurt, and half is going to be whole, which is what we're about to dump in here right now. So, once again, can opener, because I'm cheating. There's nothing wrong with cheating. Again, cooking on a budget sometimes also means cooking in a hurry. And I can tell you right now, even though this is an easy thing to do, curry's not hard to do once you've understood the basic ingredients and the basic preparing of it. But it takes a lot of time, which is another reason why I recommend making the base sauce first and just storing it in a jar. And when you are ready to cook it, the next day or the day after, throw in the sauce and start from there. It's not hard to do. If you guys want me to make a video specifically on how to do that, I will. But I think you guys can figure out how to work. Like, if you guys have ever went to the store and bought like a jar of buttered chicken and then you freaking stir-fried your chicken and threw the sauce on top of it, it's the same thing. It's just that it's your own sauce that you put in the jar. So it's that same property. But again, if you guys feel like you want me to show you exactly how to do it that way, we can do it that way. So now I added the chickpeas. It's going to add extra thickness to this. It's going to add, you know, more body. As you can see, the sauce is now a lot thicker than it was before because remember, I kept simmering it uncovered. So it got thicker, it got thicker. This is the type of, this is again that kind of sort of Indian style curry where it's thick. It's not like Thai style curries, which is a lot more viscous, a lot more liquid, which it's still tasty. It's just a difference in texture. This particular texture is much thicker, so you don't want it to render down. You want to get nice and thick and all that good stuff. But now that we got it nice and thick here, right? I want this to simmer for around 10 minutes. Now I'm going to let it sit for 10 minutes, and now I'm going to cover it so it can really, you know, keep that heat locked in and help to break down the protein. So, get my clean lid, put it on top, and just let it simmer. Now, we need something to put the curry on. I am not going to be showing you how to make naan. That's not for this video. However, we're going to have rice. And rice is something that I am very familiar with.
So simple, I can do it.
Now, again, we're cooking on a budget. You don't have to get fancy with this. Let's be real here. Basmati rice is expensive. Just is. If you can find it on sale, or if you can get it at a big bag at a decent price like I tend to do, go for it. But if you can't get basmati, regular white rice is fine. Or if you want to get a little bit fancy, go for jasmine. It's a little bit more expensive, but these days it's not that much more expensive. In fact, jasmine rice is the one rice that I cook the most because I happen to really like jasmine rice. In fact, to be honest with you, I like jasmine more than I like basmati. That being said, basmati is still good stuff. And so I will be cooking with it today. Got a nice big bag of it here. And I'm going to be making enough for 3 to 4 people. That's about 1.5 cups of dry rice. I'm going to be making it with my best kitchen friend here, my pressure cooker. I honestly feel that this is probably one of the best ways to make rice. F rice cookers. I have yet to find a rice cooker that I've liked.
Ow.
And I've worked with a lot of them. Well, there's one small rice. The small little rice cookers, those are fine. But this is I love the pressure cooker. This thing cooks rice perfect every time. But if you don't have a pressure cooker, and I can understand why, these things are expensive. I actually got this as a Christmas present years ago. I didn't pay for this. If you don't have one of these, you can use this. There is nothing wrong with this. You can make perfect rice with this and come out great every time. All you need to do, it's a 2-to-1 ratio of water to rice. If it's 1 cup of rice, 2 cups water. Or better yet, if you don't know how to measure that, simple. Take how much rice you want. Wash the crap out of it until the freaking starch is out. Throw it in your pot. Pour the water in. Look at your middle finger. This right here. Make sure the water goes over the rice up to your knuckle, and that's it. You're done. Start boiling the crap. When the water starts boiling and the water is almost at the level of the rice as it's boiling, lower the heat to as low as possible. Put the lid on top. Wait 5 minutes. Perfect rice. There's no excuse to mess up rice. Okay? Almost every culture in the world knows how to do it. You can do it too on the stove top. It'll take you 25 minutes.
There are excuses.
There are no excuses.
There are excuses. Hi.
I'm sorry. I refuse. I'm Haitian. Well, I'm not. I was born here, but my parents are Haitian. Haitian culture. There's no excuse to mess up rice.
There is an excuse to mess up rice.
Anyway, I'm going to be making some basmati rice in my pressure cooker. I know some people like to put a lot of butter in it. I'm trying not to clog arteries here, so I'm not going to be putting a whole lot of butter in it.
Butter.
However, I will be putting a little bit of butter in it for taste. And I've done it all the time.
In rice?
Yes.
You're insane.
And yet you had no problem with it. I've been doing it since the day you were born.
Yeah, because I didn't know you were putting butter with rice.
Yes.
You've been infected.
I recommend when you're making rice, just, add a little bit of salt to taste before you throw it, in the pot. And add just a teensy bit of oil, and you'll be good to go. I don't remember if I showed you guys how to make coconut rice and beans, but I'm pretty sure I did. If I did, I'll have the link. If I didn't, I'll show you guys how. But that's another really tasty rice dish. But in this particular case, we're going traditional here. We're just going to go with basmati rice. And by the way, get yourself one of these. I found this online for 75 cents. I don't want to go back to washing rice the old-fashioned way. When you put it in the freaking bowl or your pot and you rinse it and then you got to hold your hand out here and hope that the grains don't fall in the sink. No, get yourself one of these. It saves so much time. You just simply put in your water and you rinse. Just wash it. You see it all cloudy like that? Just keep on doing that to make sure all the cloudy stuff is gone. And see how easy that is? I'm not losing any grains. It just goes through that. Put the water through again. Rinse again. You basically can do this about 3 times is enough. Maybe 4. Now, I know, by the way, there's some people who don't wash their rice at all, and they're looking at the rest of the world like, what the hell are you doing? My rice is clean. If the whole washing rice thing, part of that is because a lot of the cultures that do this, it's from places that used to buy their rice, in marketplaces somewhere, or there might be sand or grit or other things, and you want to wash that stuff off. These days, because, we're now living in the industrial age where, you got factories and stuff where they clean the rice out and all the dirt and stuff, you don't necessarily need to wash it anymore, but I still wash the rice. One, it is nice to get some of that extra starch content out of it, even though, if I'm going to be fair, if you're getting enriched rice and you wash it, you literally are washing the vitamins right out of the rice that they pour over it. But the rest of your food should have those vitamins anyway, so, that's not that much of a big deal. And the other thing is, and not to scare the crap out of you guys, but even though the rice is supposed to be cleaner these days, the facilities that they run them through, you don't know necessarily if those facilities were clean. So, it's usually a good idea to wash it anyway. Just be on the safe side. And also, there's a chance, depending on where the rice was sourced, there might be arsenic in it. No, I'm not making that up. There are some places where, depending on where the rice was grown, depending on where the rice was processed, there might be arsenic in the water. I mean, probably in the water too, but it might be in the rice. And when that happens, even washing it may not fully work. You might have to end up cooking that rice like the way you cook spaghetti. I'm not kidding, but we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here. Anyway, since I'm doing this in the pressure cooker, I don't have to do it 2 to 1. It's 1 to 1. So since I put in a cup and a half of rice, I'm putting in a cup and a half of water for the pressure cooker. I'm actually going to be adding in another extra 1/4 of water, just to make it a little softer. Again, you don't have to do this, but it's something I like to do. And then, I'll stick this here. I'm going to double check my food here. It's simmering. I'm going to mix it up. Is that a nice, rich orange color? That's what I like to see. And yeah, come back to this and mix it up every now and then. Partially, just, keep the flavors developing and get, everything all nice and mixed up. But also to keep it from burning. That's the other reason. If you just let it sit here simmering, yes, I know what I said about it being non-stick, but let's not be dumb about this. It does, the thick stuff does stay on the bottom and the liquid does come to the top when it's simmering like that. Which means that there's more of a chance that the heat might start to singe the bottom of the pot. And start singeing, the food that's closer to the heat. So keep that from happening. Come back here and mix it up every now and then. Unless you like scrubbing the crap out of your pan when you're done cooking. So, keep that there. And I am going to get myself a little bit of butter that I keep hidden here. Secret butter stash. Don't add too much butter to this, like I said. not trying to clog arteries. I'm just putting in just a little bit, just a tiny little bit of butter. Nothing too much, just enough, just a little bit. So about that much. Yeah, about that much. I don't need to put more. It's just the taste. I want it to have just a little bit of a buttery profile to it, just enough for you to go, hey, there's some flavor to this rice. But not to the point where it's dripping in butter or where you bite into the rice and all you're tasting is butter. I know some people like it that way. I'm not one of those people. I want to taste the rice as well as the flavor. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Just a sprinkle. Just a little bit. I didn't really go nuts. Just a little sprinkle. I'll put a little bit more. That's it. That's it. Again, we're just trying to add for flavor, not to overpower. Right. This is going to be done in about 10 minutes. It takes a few minutes for the pressure to build up and 6 minutes for it to be done. That's another reason why I love that pressure cooker. I'm not waiting 45 to 50 minutes with these fancy pressure cookers, rice cookers these days. 6 minutes. If I was doing it on the stove, 25 minutes. If I was doing it with those smaller rice cookers, they usually done it about 30. But I noticed the more expensive rice cookers, it's taking like 45, 50 minutes to cook. What are you paying for? That's another reason why I refuse to use the fancy rice cookers now. Pressure cooker and nothing. That's the way I do it. So, it's been simmering 7-8 minutes. Gonna let it simmer for a little while longer because I want it to simmer for at least 10. Or if you want the meat to be a little bit more tender, you can do it for 15. But about 10 minutes should be enough. And we're close to about the 10 minutes for this. So when we come back, we're gonna have the rice done. We're gonna have that done. Show you what the finished product looks like and see if everybody likes it. So yeah, this is done. This is exactly the consistency that I wanted. It's nice and thick. You see that? This is the thickness you want it at in the end. Okay? That's the sort of thing that if you wanted to, you could put between 2 slices of bread, which a certain kid from a Trevor Noah comedy skit's probably screaming about right now. But yeah, this is the exact consistency I want. And the flavor's perfect. This is the way I wanted it. I got this exactly where I wanted it. So the rice is done. So I'm going to release the pressure. And then we're going to serve. You can, I mean, it's your house. You can serve it exactly how you want. You want to put it in a bowl. You want to put it on naan. Well, I made rice. It's not going on naan. But you know what I mean. However you want to serve it, serve it. You don't got to be fancy with it. I happen to have some nice plates, so that's what I'm going to have to put it on. I'll put it in a bowl, do that, saucer, whatever. Just eat how you're going to eat. It's your house. But I'm going to get out my little rice spoon here, and now something else, just a little bit of a tip on rice, which I had actually picked up from an Asian friend. They seem to like it when you fluff the rice. So it's not just, oh, I'm just going to dip it and start serving it. They actually fluff it up a bit. And it's supposed to like help with the flavor and help to keep them all separate, help to get the steam out. By the way, just be careful. Steam is hot. It's really freaking hot. You don't want to burn the crap out of yourself with it. So just scoop up some rice, which is smelling really good. Yeah, that smells really good. All right, just serve up some of that. Put that in there for a second. And then, this is what I've been stirring it with, but I need something proper to serve it with. So, put that on the lid. Still bubbling a bit. Oh, one other tip I forgot to give. You don't have to do this, but it's a nice little thing to add to the curry. When this is doing the simmering for the last 10 to 15 minutes, you may want to grab another pot, take 2 tablespoons of butter, melt the butter in that saucepan, and then add 1 tablespoon of paprika to that. You're going to end up with this tasty red butter oil sauce that you can then spiral around this pan when it's done, and then you'll serve it with that extra paprika buttery flavor on top of the sauce. It's really good, but if you're watching your fat intake, I can understand if you don't want to add that extra step. But if you do, if you're fine with it, I will say it is very tasty. So just add that in there and just plop it right on top. Again, I'm not being too fancy with it, but we got our bed of rice, we got our curry, and look at that. Chickpeas, tomatoes, the beef, you know, the yogurt, all that flavor, and of course all the spice is going to be in there, and it's going to taste amazing with the rice. So, yeah. This took a while to make because I did this all from scratch, you know, starting with the spices, you know, the onions, chopping it up, pureeing, you know, the tomatoes, and of course, you know, you're putting the ginger and the turmeric and mixing all that up. And of course, the garlic and the ginger and all that. Again, there's faster ways to do it. You can just simply grab, you know, the spices purely in powder form and work with that. And of course, if you want to speed things up, you can just make the base sauce, throw that in a jar, put it in the fridge, and then when you're ready to cook, whatever protein you want to cook with it, throw that in with some oil, fry it up for a little bit, pour that sauce over it, and let it simmer for about 10 minutes or so. You'll be good. As far as the chickpeas parts goes, if you're going to be doing my tip to have the base sauce, then yeah, you're going to fry up your meat. If you are using meat, throw in your sauce, let that bubble for a little bit. Then you're going to be adding in the pureed chickpeas with the yogurt and the 1/4 cup of water. And then let that simmer for a little bit, for about 5 minutes, and then throw in the rest of the chickpeas and let it simmer for 10. You're good to go. It's very easy to do. This is the very first Indian curry recipe I'd ever learned. I've been messing with it. Like the beef is an extra thing that I added. I started with just the chickpeas, and it was very good. And I started experimenting with it, adding a little bit more spice to it, changing certain ratios, fiddling with it until I got it exactly the way I like it and the way that I know everyone else around me liked it. And then I started making variations. And this is the reason why I'm trying to pass this on to you guys. It's because once you've gotten really good at making this, hell, forget the beef. You just do it with just the chickpeas just to get a feel for how to cook it. And then after that, you can add beef, chicken, if you are a meat eater. If you're not, you know, just do it with just the chickpeas. If you want to be completely vegan, no milk, dairy products, then add coconut milk instead of the yogurt. Mess with it. Change things around. You'll be amazed how versatile just working with the basic 5 spices will be when you're making your curries. So the next video I'm going to do, we're going to change this around a little bit with the same basic 5 spices, but we're going to, I'm not even going to, it's going to be different. Trust me, the end product, it's going to taste different. It's going to give a different profile, flavorful profile to it, but it's still curry. And I'm hoping by showing you guys that, and then one more video after that, you'll see just how versatile it is, so that you don't have to end up eating the same flavor over and over again and getting bored with it. This is a really good way to be able to eat on a budget and yet still enjoy some really good flavors. So, hope you guys like it. Catch you guys later.